Hello there, and welcome to a Wednesday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you're listening on your radio, streaming the show online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the Extra Sports 1300 app. It'll be half the show, but the full effort, 90 minutes, leading you up to the Denver Nuggets taking on the Indiana Pacers. In the meantime, a veritable cornucopia of sports topics, and I would love to get your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Yesterday was great conversation regarding the Broncos and how they stack up against the Patriots and the rest of the AFC. Perhaps some of these topics today will spur similar interest. I will start with the Colorado Avalanche. And for them last night, it was basically business as usual. 3-1 win over the Vancouver Canucks. Normal night at the office. And I say that backed up by statistical evidence. The Colorado Avalanche, who, by the way, right now, are 19-1-6. One loss in regulation. Still, their goal differential this year is plus 50. And if you average that out, you're basically saying that the Colorado Avalanche are beating teams by about 2 goals a night. Exactly what they did last night. In a sport that has a lot of games decided by a goal, the Avalanche haven't really bothered with that for most of the season. When they've lost, it's been by 1 goal because 6 of their 7 quote-unquote losses are by a goal or by an extra point because of the shootout. But what you can basically bank on right now with the Colorado Avalanche is that not only will they win, because again, they're 19-1-6, but they'll win by multiple goals. Empty netters need not apply. Although they do get a fair amount of those to make the final margin. 2 goals, but 2 goals a night. They have given up 10 fewer goals and scored 10 more goals than the next closest team in those respective categories, which is not the same team. Let me say that again. They clear the entire NHL by both 10 goals for and 10 goals against. This is as dominant of a start to an NHL season as we have seen in years. And the embodiment of this and the way that the Avalanche are beating teams is Nathan MacKinnon. This team is unrelenting. And this team isn't just looking to beat you. They are looking to make you look foolish. And that is exactly the game of Nathan MacKinnon, who, by the way, scored 2 of the Avs' 3 goals last night. On the season, Nathan MacKinnon has 22 goals in 39 games. Last year, he had 22 goals in 26 games. Last year, he had 32 goals in 79 games. This is why they tell you not to throw out too many numbers on live radio. He is 10 back of his entire goal output from a year ago. And the Avs have played 26 games. Now, we're not talking early 80s Gretzky here in terms of the pace for Nathan MacKinnon, but he's setting the tone for the way this team is playing. They are playing like Nathan MacKinnon. All four lines, all three D pairings. They just come at you in waves and they do not relent. And what I found most interesting about the way that Nathan MacKinnon has started this season, not just the sheer numbers, which are, you get taken aback by the numbers he's putting up. What we are seeing is a similar effect to what the Denver Nuggets depth had on Nikola Jokic. Now, that's kind of gone out the window because the Nuggets are incredibly banged up. But we're seeing with both of these teams this offseason, or the last, I guess, season and an offseason, if we're talking about the Avs, because they started making some moves during the season last year. We are seeing a team that doesn't have to play its best player as much. Nathan MacKinnon is playing a shift or two less every single night, which multiply that by 82 games. And what we are getting, just like we got with Nikola Jokic at the beginning of the season with the Denver Nuggets, is a more effective superstar. Because when you're at that level, the best thing that you can get is rest. And it's not in abundant supply because they need you. But with the depth that the Colorado Avalanche have accumulated, Jared Bednar does not have to put Nathan MacKinnon on the ice as much as he has in the last, look at the on ice time. He's playing the fewest amount of minutes every night that he has for the last 5 years. And these are the results you're getting. 22 goals through 26 games. That is a scary thought for the rest of the NHL. It's not like they're just riding Nathan MacKinnon to this early season start. They're actually sparing him, and yet he is putting up prolific numbers. And the numbers that he is putting up lead me to a conclusion. And I have hinted at this every so often along the way. We are here now. The debate over who the best player in the NHL is a debate. It is truly a debate. For years, it was like, yeah, Nathan MacKinnon's great, but McDavid. Big guy, McDavid, though. We're not there anymore. The best player in the NHL is up for conversation. It is up for debate. Now, I would still lean Connor McDavid. I don't think we're at the point that Nathan MacKinnon overtakes McDavid. But the only reason right now that Connor McDavid is still, in my mind, the best player in the NHL over Nathan MacKinnon is because of what he does on the power play. Because 5-on-5, the debate flips. 5-on-5, Nathan MacKinnon over the last 5 years has been better than Connor McDavid. You got your full team. I got mine. Nathan MacKinnon has scored 10 more goals and has the same amount of assists as Connor McDavid. And he also has an MVP, and he also has the one thing Connor McDavid does not have, and that is a Stanley Cup. This conversation is open. Connor McDavid does not have a stranglehold on his place in the NHL. Nathan MacKinnon has caught up to him. And at the pace that both he and the Colorado Avalanche are playing at, Nathan MacKinnon's going to separate himself from Connor McDavid when it comes to 5-on-5 hockey, even more so than he already has. He may add another MVP trophy to his collection, and the Colorado Avalanche will attain a second cup while McDavid is still waiting for his first. I still go with Connor McDavid, but it is a debate. It is not a no-brainer. It is not an obvious answer. It is multiple choice. Or in this case, true false. Because you only have two choices. Nathan MacKinnon is playing some of the best hockey of his career, and by extension, the Colorado Avalanche are playing very much the same way that Nathan MacKinnon is. Unrelenting, fast, attacking, powerful hockey. And the rest of the league right now is just, they're not a match for them. But we know the great equalizer in sports because we're seeing it across the hall with the Denver Nuggets. We have to say, yes, they have missed Valeri Nichushkin, and now he's back. Gavin Brindley, his meteoric rise had to be put on hold with his injury. It's not like the Avs have zero injuries. But we know that health and injuries can be the thing that slows a team like the Colorado Avalanche down. And last night, Scott Wedgwood left that game with an upper body injury. Just as they were getting Valeri Nichushkin back. And the theory I always have, it always seems to be one in, one out when it comes to the injuries. How long is Scott Wedgwood going to be out for? Who has proven himself so far this season to be the Avs' better goalie. Statistically, he's been better than Mackenzie Blackwood. It's been basically alternating like that Boston Bruins team with Linus Ullmark and Jeremy Swayman. Bednar's just flipping back and forth between the two. And Mackenzie Blackwood talked about how much fresher he is. Going back to the rest thing, right? Nathan MacKinnon doesn't have to spend as much time on the ice. He's fresher and he's more dominant. Same thing with the goalies. Right now, because the level of play doesn't significantly drop off between one or the other, Jared Bednar's rotating him and they're fresher, and he's getting the best out of both of them right now because of it. But now we'll see if Scott Wedgwood's going to be out for a little while, and the team did recall Trent Miner from Loveland. So they made a roster move with the thought of Scott Wedgwood at least not being active for the Avs next game, which Blackwood would probably start anyway. Now we see Mackenzie Blackwood kind of take the net back and see how he performs. Because Jared Bednar said this, a few weeks ago. Like, it's on Mackenzie Blackwood to get himself right. He's not waiting. He's not going to force Mackenzie Blackwood into the net just to get him reps, just to get him right. That's what practice is for. Jared Bednar doesn't want to let up here. He wants to keep this thing going. So he hasn't given Mackenzie Blackwood any more time. But now he might be forced to. And we'll see how Mackenzie Blackwood holds up under that. Right now, though, the Avs, the way they're playing, the way they're preventing goals, too. They're preventing goals even before they get to the goaltender. I'm not even talking about the ones that Wedgwood and Blackwood save. I'm saying the ones that are never shot on goal because of the way the Avs are playing in front of them. They have been tremendous in doing that. One of the best teams in the NHL. And even if they do let a few in, the way Nathan MacKinnon and the rest of the team is playing, they'll probably outscore you. It is, if you haven't watched the Avs lately, please make some plans because they are a sight to behold right now in the National Hockey League. Take your thoughts. Hit on a few things there. Recent run of form from the Avs. Is the debate between Connor McDavid and Nathan MacKinnon open? (719) 24/7 1313. Coming up next, would you like Giannis Antetokounmpo on the Denver Nuggets? Nuggets fans, we've added a new matchup. Or they have. I had nothing to do with it. Your Denver Nuggets will host the Houston Rockets on Monday, December 15th at 7:30 p.m. Tickets on sale now at nuggets.com. Don't miss this extra chance to see your team take the court at Ball Arena. I believe the other game that was added in was another matchup with the Kings, which right now is the Nuggets' kryptonite. Just lost to them and losing to a lot of mediocre teams of late. Which is why, given the current state of the Denver Nuggets, or at least their recent form, I find this to be a fascinating time to ask this question. Would you like Giannis Antetokounmpo on the Denver Nuggets? The big news out of the NBA, according to Shams Charania, is that the Milwaukee Bucks are going to sit down with Giannis and discuss where the best place for him to play basketball is. Now, this is on the heels of another report that Giannis was looking to be traded this offseason. And it didn't happen. And now the report from Shams that the Bucks are at least going to hear out Giannis and see where things go. So it would appear, whether it's during this season or this summer, that Giannis Antetokounmpo will be moving on from the Milwaukee Bucks. So would you like Giannis on the Nuggets? I'll tell you what it will cost you. I'll tell you what the Nuggets could honestly offer them. Because I'm sorry, I can't pull these ridiculous trade things out of nowhere where, they trade Zeke Naji and a second-round pick in 2056 for Giannis. Okay, I got to deal at least a little bit in reality here. In reality, this is the most likely trade package that the Denver Nuggets could offer the Milwaukee Bucks. Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, and then either Peyton Watson or Christian Brown. Now, I think it would make basketball sense for the Denver Nuggets to try and part with Peyton Watson. I don't know that he would be the more desirable of the two players between Christian Brown and Peyton Watson. But that's the trade, to try to make the money work, to say nothing of Milwaukee's interest. Would you give up Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, and Christian Brown for Giannis? I'm not. And I'll tell you why. What I saw before the Nuggets started dropping like flies is that depth is a key to unlocking even a higher level of play from Nikola Jokic. When the bench unit was intact because the starting five was intact, Nikola Jokic was playing at a higher level than we had seen him previously. And the Nuggets were doing what I just discussed the Avs doing. Bludgeoning teams, overwhelming them, making light work of everyone on their schedule. I don't want to lose that. Because here are the three things that are the most valued in today's NBA. Financial flexibility, depth, and three-point shooting. Right? If you do not have at least two of those three, and really, you probably got to have all three, you're in a really tough spot. Like, if you don't have financial flexibility, for 1 year, you can go and win a title, depending on whether you have depth and three-point shooting. But you're not going to sustain your success because the tax bill is going to come due, and there's not an owner in the league that wants, except maybe the new guy in LA, that wants to pay that luxury tax bill. The three most valuable things in today's NBA with the new CBA: financial flexibility, depth, and three-point shooting, and the Denver Nuggets would be sacrificing all three to get Giannis. As great of a player as Giannis is, this is not about me thinking Giannis is washed. In a vacuum, swapping Giannis for Cam Johnson, sign me up. But I can't do that deal if I'm the Denver Nuggets. I can't, because they took too long to find what they finally have. And you're going to give it up. And oh, by the way, I mean, we could argue from a basketball standpoint that Giannis is a better player than Aaron Gordon, but you have seen the impact of having no Aaron Gordon, not just in terms of the drop-off defensively, which Giannis can make up. But what about this? Heart, competitiveness. Aaron Gordon is the heartbeat of this Denver Nuggets team. And as excited as everyone remaining on the Nuggets would be to have Giannis, they would be losing something. And also, too, I know everyone salivates over the idea of landing a star player who wants out of his current location. Is that, like, it? There are exceptions to every rule. Damian Lillard was an exception to this rule. Right? Like, Damian Lillard was being loyal to the Blazers to his own detriment in many ways. Now, we found out that, you know what? He probably was right. Damian Lillard is just, because of his family situation and his personality, it just probably wasn't the best for him to leave Portland in the first place. But because the Blazers were going nowhere, and I guess Milwaukee is too, but there was just the thought of, like, Dane, what was Portland doing to help Damian Lillard out? What big moves were they making to try and make it work? I didn't see a lot of that. I just saw the Blazers wasting away and wasting Damian Lillard's prime, which is now gone, by the way, because not only is he a few years older, but he's coming off of a devastating injury. With Giannis, the Milwaukee Bucks have done things. They brought Damian Lillard in. They added Miles Turner this offseason. You can't say that Milwaukee's not trying to appease Giannis Antetokounmpo. Is it getting them anywhere? No, it's not. But I really think that the effort, especially covering the Denver Nuggets over the last couple of years and just seeing a front office sit idly by and watch more talent walk out the door than walk through the front door. To me, if you're putting in the effort and you're acquiring talent and it doesn't work, like, yeah, you could still be frustrated if you're Giannis, but I kind of look at the Bucks as a tragic figure in all of this. Like, they're doing all of this for Giannis. They're trying. They're not just sitting on their hands. They're not taking Giannis for granted. They brought him Damian Lillard. It didn't work. They brought him Miles Turner. It's not working out. But they get no credit for at least making moves and trying. A guy that doesn't recognize that and still wants to go. I'm not going to say Giannis is the polar opposite of Aaron Gordon. I'm just saying it's not just who Aaron Gordon is as a person and a player and a leader that you would be losing out on. I don't know if that Giannis's mentality is what you want to bring onto your team. I don't know if it's, I mean, KD, Kyrie Irving, Anthony Davis, Paul George. You know, there's some successes in there. Anthony Davis going to LA was a success. They won a title. What has anyone done with Paul George since he wanted out of OKC? And right now, that's, in terms of what Oklahoma City got back, may turn out to be one of the most lopsided trades in the history of sport. Paul George has not worked out. Anthony Davis worked out for a year. Everywhere Kevin Durant has gone has ended in fiery wreckage. I don't know if I would do that if I'm the Denver Nuggets. I get the basketball side of it. I get player for player. I'm not sitting here saying Aaron Gordon's a better player than Giannis, but you have to take more into account than that. You're not just giving, even if you're like, you know what, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it because I care more about the basketball. That's fine. But you're also giving up Cam Johnson and Christian Brown, which means you have to bring somebody from that bench unit that looks so good early in the season. You're bringing them into the starting five. Are you signing up for the return of the non-Jokic minutes in a negative way? Right? Are you inviting that back to get better in your starting five and hamstringing yourself financially? They're not keeping these depth pieces forever. They're going to have to find a new Tim Hardaway and a new Jonas Valanciunas if they're going to sustain their championship window. The days are over of just get as many stars as you can and figure the rest out later. That was the other CBA. It is a new day in the NBA. There are no repeat champions. There are no super teams. And you need depth and you need financial flexibility, and Giannis would cost you both. If I'm the Nuggets, I like what I have. Here's the one spot, though. I'll take a break and finish this conversation on the other side, and I welcome you to jump in at 719-247-1313. The one thing that would worry me if I'm the Denver Nuggets, I say we're good, as brilliant as Giannis is, it's okay. But what if the Nuggets can get him pass and he ends up right in their own backyard? That's next here on Extra Sports 1300. Giannis Antetokounmpo might be heading out of Milwaukee here soon. Report from Shams Charania that the Bucks and Giannis are going to get together and discuss his basketball future. So inevitably, every NBA fan base in America and North America, sub Toronto, will be discussing, as we are, whether Giannis makes sense. How badly does your team need Giannis? And I think that the Denver Nuggets do not need him badly. If the trade, and I am not an NBA general manager, but I do have access to NBA Trade Machine. Financially, Gordon, Cam Johnson, and Christian Brown would make it work. A 3-for-1 trade in a league that now values cap flexibility and depth more than it ever has. You're going to give up 3 players, 3 key rotation pieces for one guy, even if that one guy is better than any of those 3 guys. That is not up for discussion. Giannis is on the Denver Nuggets, would immediately be the second best player on the Denver Nuggets. But just that sentence right there tells you, do they have to give up all of this just to get a guy that would be the second best player on the team? Be a hell of a second best player on a team. But already, with me saying that, the Nuggets don't need Giannis as much as some other teams do, who would be willing to give up more than the Denver Nuggets would be willing to offer. On Facebook, Brian's watching, says, didn't they just sign Christian Brown to a 5-year deal? They did, but the new deal kicks in next year. So this year, Christian Brown is still making, by NBA standards, peanuts. But you're right about the longer-term ramifications of that essentially for next year and beyond, which is if we're moving back the timeline and saying Giannis is not going anywhere this year, but he's going somewhere in the summer, you're right, Brian. Now Christian Brown's off the table. Now you're looking at Aaron Gordon, Cam, or Christian Brown, and then you got to find a third piece. So it does change things if Giannis is moved during the season or if he's moved in the summer. Great point by you. But as of right now, because that's where we live, is in the right now, Christian Brown's contract would fit in a trade. And then it would be on Milwaukee to figure out financially next year and beyond what they would do. This text coming in from the 719, no to that trade. I agree. And it's Giannis is great, but the Nuggets have just got something. One, they have something special. I know what has been going on with them lately has not been fun. These 4 straight losses at home, Cam Johnson struggles, the injuries, I get it. But it wasn't that long ago that the Nuggets looked like, outside of Oklahoma City, the most dominant team in the NBA. And I guess that's what you have to ask yourself. Knowing everything you know about what is valued in today's NBA, would giving up Aaron Gordon, Christian Brown, and Cam Johnson for Giannis make the Nuggets better equipped to beat Oklahoma City in a 7-game series? And I don't know that you can say that. I don't do that deal. Now, I wanted to start with that because that's the more fun thing to discuss. Here's the reality. Let me step across the aisle. There is no way on planet Earth that the Milwaukee Bucks will take the deal I just put out there. There is no way. Look at it from Milwaukee. This is your franchise player. This is a guy you won a title with. This has been one of the most significant players in your franchise's history. And you're going to trade him for Aaron Gordon, Cam Johnson, and Christian Brown, with all due respect to those players who are all important to what the Denver Nuggets are going to do this year. I laugh and hang up the phone if I'm Milwaukee. There is no way that is going to be the best offer that the Milwaukee Bucks will get for Giannis, and it's the absolute best offer the Nuggets can make, other than the one that I know you're thinking about, and nobody is really entertaining the idea of trading Jokic. I mean, even Jamal Murray. Let's go down that road for a minute. Think Milwaukee wants Jamal Murray for Giannis? Do you think that the Nuggets would be wise to give up Jamal Murray? They're already having some issues with having a dearth of ball handlers, and they're going to give up Jamal Murray. So I don't know. Basketball-wise, it's a little messy. But even still, even if you're like, okay, we'll keep Aaron Gordon and trade Jamal Murray, you got to tell me what your starting five looks like. But the answer would still be no from Milwaukee. Right? So we do the fun thing and we theorize, but here's the reality of the situation. There is no way that Milwaukee is doing that deal with the Denver Nuggets. There's no way. And here's where the worry might set in for you if you're a Nuggets fan. Of the four most possible places for Giannis Antetokounmpo to end up, three of them are not only in the Western Conference, three of them are primed to be battling with the Denver Nuggets for the foreseeable future. San Antonio is a very logical landing spot. Remember in the draft when they took Dylan Harper and you're like, man, don't they have a lot of guards? They have De'Aaron Fox and they have Steph Castle, and now they're adding Ron Harper's kid. Isn't that a little bit too many? That's one too many guards. Yeah. So now you can include him in a trade for Giannis. And I would argue for where the Milwaukee Bucks are going to be once they trade Giannis, which is not in contention, Dylan Harper's a better piece that you can get back than anything the Nuggets can give you. And oh, by the way, pretty much every team in the NBA has more draft capital than the Denver Nuggets do right now. So the Nuggets, when I said those three players, that's it. They don't have a draft pick that they can move here. They moved. I know everybody loved the trade with Michael Porter, but don't forget they gave up the last first-round pick that they can actually trade in facilitating that deal. So San Antonio can basically offer picks, which the best thing you get out of picks is just currency. Now Milwaukee down the road will take that draft pick and move it for a veteran piece. Just currency. It's not about, oh, we're going to end up, because San Antonio, you're giving them Giannis to pair with Wemby. You're not going to get a decent draft pick out of this. But you can stock them up, and maybe it's a future one, and maybe you're sitting there like Sam Presti 5 years from now, and a team you made better in the meantime, but in 5 years, Their window is going to be closed, LA Clippers, and you're going to be sitting there with all their draft capital. So Dylan Harper and picks is already better than anything Denver can give. Houston has some draft capital, but they have a young trio in Alperen Şengün, Jabari Smith, and Amen Thompson. If I'm Milwaukee, I want one of those three dudes, and there is an order. I think I look at it, as much as I love Şengün, I look at Thompson, I look at Amen Thompson, and I tell the Houston Rockets, we must get this guy back. We'll take the expiring of Fred VanVleet. We'll take on Steven Adams, and we'll buy him out. But we're getting Thompson because he can turn into our next Giannis. Amen Thompson is a freak of nature who's like, I don't know, he's like 16. He's super young. But even Houston with any of those three young guys trump whatever the Denver Nuggets can offer. And then there's the team that is lording over the entire NBA right now. That at the snap of a finger, they could add Giannis and not even bat an eye. And that's Oklahoma City. They could do it tomorrow if they wanted to. If they wanted to. And I think it actually further fortifies my point that the Denver Nuggets should not be looking to trade for Giannis and give up multiple players to get Giannis. I think it fortifies my point that Oklahoma City hasn't done this already and traded for him. Why? Because then you can't sustain success. Now your roster becomes very expensive very quickly. And I know the Thunder have just this treasure trove of draft capital. But it's the idea that we have a team that is the deepest in the NBA right now, and we're going to sacrifice because you got to make the money work first and foremost. You can throw in a Clippers pick, right, as the big get for Milwaukee in a loaded draft this year. But you still have to make the money work. You're still going to give up multiple players. And in the Oklahoma City's case, they might have to give up more than just 3 players with how cheap some of these guys still are. But they could do it tomorrow if they wanted to. That has to be said about the Oklahoma City Thunder. But the fact that they haven't kind of makes my point even stronger about why the Denver Nuggets, as tempting as it would be, probably in the best interest not to do it. So what does this come down to? You better hope Giannis ends up in New York. If you're a Nuggets fan. Because and by the way, that's his preferred destination. Reportedly, allegedly. That's what you're rooting for. Go to New York. Stay out of the state of Texas. Stay out of the Western Conference. So you should want what Giannis wants, reportedly, which is to go to the New York Knicks. And it makes all the sense in the world for him to go to New York. 719-24-7. 1313 more Drive Time Sports after this. Welcome, hour 2 on this Wednesday, although it will only last for 30 minutes as the Denver Nuggets get set to take on the Indiana Pacers. Jamal Murray questionable with the ankle injury he sustained in the Nuggets' loss to Dallas. If I don't update you on Jamal's status, I'm sure Mark Bertinoli certainly will when Altitude's coverage begins at the bottom of the hour. Appreciate you tuning in today, especially those of you watching on our social media platforms, whether it be YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. The handle is the same in all of those places at XTRA Sports 1300. While you're there, you could do as Brian did, drop a comment, and I can even display it on the feed. But I'll at least read it. So you could do that, but might be handy for you to like, subscribe, follow. That way you don't have to keep remembering whether we put in Ian extra or not. I was thinking last night, really good conversation that we had pertaining to the Denver Broncos and are they better than New England? Do they need home field? And I was thinking of the college football playoff field getting announced, or the latest rankings being announced. And I was going to rank the NFL teams, playoff teams, like the committee. But then I remembered how much of a fool's errand that would be, because the committee is absolutely terrible at what they do, and there is no rhyme or reason to what they do. None. So I'm not going to do that. But one thing from our conversation kind of stuck in my head, and somebody had text in and started this very college football-like conversation, right? In college football, you hear it all the time. Who have they beaten, though? Right? That's always the knock on, like, Alabama. Oh, who has Alabama beaten? They play this team and they play this team. And there was a little bit of that yesterday going on in the chat with New England and Denver. And the thing about it is, if you are looking at New England or Denver and saying, but who have they played? You're right. The New England Patriots right now have the worst strength of schedule in the NFL. The Denver Broncos, though, 24th. So who's played the easier schedule? New England has. Which actually might be a reason to put Denver above them. If you are ranking them like what the college football playoff is, I think, supposed to do, and look at strength of schedule, look at quality wins. If you go off of those metrics, I think you can make the case that Denver should be above New England. But in the NFL world, we usually just talk about how good the teams are. So if you want to rank these teams in the AFC like you're ranking college football playoff teams, yeah, Denver should be higher than New England. They should be ranked higher. They played a tougher schedule. Their best win at Philadelphia is a better win than New England being Buffalo. Not by a huge margin. Just like New England hasn't played a way easier schedule than the Denver Broncos. But it's enough. Denver would be ranked ahead. Now, was that necessarily the conversation that we were getting into? No, we were talking about which team is better. But if you want to look at strength of schedule, you want to look at key wins, Denver would be above New England. But my biggest takeaway from yesterday's conversation was, as I'm thinking through it, I'm like, wait a minute. We say that the Broncos haven't beaten anybody and the Patriots haven't beaten anybody, and everyone in the AFC is kind of mid. And it's like, well, who are they playing? They're playing each other. None of these teams have these great wins because every team in the AFC is incredibly flawed. No one is impressed by anyone in the AFC. And these games account for most of the records of New England and Denver and Indy and so on and so forth. If there's parity in the AFC, or if the AFC is a little bit down this year, then these teams aren't going to get credit for beating one another. And it just feeds the cycle. But if you wanted to go like the college football playoff and you wanted to rank these teams, yes, Denver would be above New England. Would Jacksonville be number one? Allow me to explain. Strength of schedule among playoff teams, or just among all teams. Houston, who right now is not in the playoff picture, but will be as soon as they beat Kansas City on Sunday night. Houston has the most difficult strength of schedule in the entire NFL. Then it is NFC team, NFC team, NFC team, NFC team, the Titans, the Chiefs, who are not in the playoffs as of today, and then it's Jacksonville. Think about that. One speaks perfectly to the idea that the AFC is the weaker of the two conferences, because the higher strength of schedule is almost all NFC teams because the NFC is better. And then you got two teams that aren't in the playoffs as of today, or three. You have one team that has one win who wouldn't even be in consideration, Houston and Kansas City. And then it's Jacksonville. Jacksonville has played a much more difficult schedule than New England or Denver. And they've taken their lumps because of it, by the way. They do have two more losses than Denver and New England do. But should the fact that the Jacksonville Jaguars have played a much more difficult schedule and yet are at the top of their division, which, by the way, has three teams that are in playoff contention. Two of them are currently in the playoffs. Does that make up for it? I almost think if this were the college football playoff committee, you would see Denver rank 1, Jacksonville would be 2, and New England would be ranked 3rd. Because Denver has three teams in Denver's division, has three teams in playoff contention. Two of them are in the playoff as of right now. Denver has beaten Philadelphia as their best win of the year. I don't know, because the college football playoff committee has their hands full making a mess out of what they got going on. I kind of think the discussion, if we talked about it like college football, I think Jacksonville would deserve a little bit more love. And maybe that would make up for the fact that Jacksonville has lost 2 more games. Now you look at Jacksonville's schedule and you say, well, who have they beaten? They have beaten Houston, not currently a playoff team. They have beaten San Francisco, currently a playoff team in the tougher conference. They beat Kansas City. And they have beaten the Chargers. Denver has lost to the Chargers. I mean, you could make the argument that if we're going by resume, and this is also to point out the flaw in just analyzing the resume. Because if I told you Jacksonville should be ranked number 1 in the AFC, that they're the AFC's number 1 team, you would be coming at me with everything you've got. You would say that I don't know what I'm talking about. Why? Because the blind resume test is not the be all end all. New England and Denver are better teams than Jacksonville. I believe that they are. But I did find it interesting that, lo and behold, the Jacksonville Jaguars might have a legitimate argument to be placed atop the AFC if we were ranking these AFC playoff teams. And Jacksonville did not get 1 vote yesterday. When we were talking, the Patriots and the Broncos were obviously mentioned. I brought up Buffalo because I said they're the team no one wants to play, and I'm still backing Buffalo if this is the playoff field. I think Baltimore was mentioned at some point. Not one mention of Jacksonville, who is the current 3 seed and has gotten the 3 seed with a much more difficult schedule in front of them than either Denver or New England. Perhaps no one in their right mind would list Jacksonville as the team to beat in the AFC, but perhaps we need to take Jacksonville a little bit more seriously. It just so happens that the Denver Broncos will be hosting Jacksonville next week. Be able to see that play out. Which also, by the way, goes to a big aspect of what the mess that is the college football playoff. The fact that they release these every week is a problem. I know why they do it. It's television, but it's a problem. Because if the NFL were more like college football, we'd be, Jacksonville's ranked above Denver. How could they possibly have? Well, they play each other. By the end of it, Denver will have played Jacksonville, and we will have a better idea of who's better. Now, I know in college football, it's not a balanced schedule, but we have conference championships coming up where some of these playoff teams will meet up with one another. That's also, I'm right there with people on how ridiculous it is, and they can't explain it. They can't explain why they put the teams where they did. But what I have found in the maiden voyage of this expanded college football playoff field is that usually there is less outrage once all the games are played. I don't know who that's going to be. Is that Notre Dame? Does Notre Dame fall out? Does Alabama fall out if they lose in the SEC championship? I seem to remember last year a little bit less vitriol than what we have right now. And part of the problem is because all the games aren't over yet. And it's being presented as these are the official rankings. These matter. Could you imagine if we just simply ranked NFL teams rather than had them qualify for the playoffs by winning their divisions? It'd be. I know college football is moving in a direction to be more like the NFL. This is one of the things that's superior about the National Football League. The meritocracy of it all. You're in a division. Sometimes your division might be great. Sometimes it might be terrible. You win your division, you're in. And then we're going to take the next best records. College football can't do that to a large extent. I understand that. But it's one of the things that I prefer about the National Football League. 719-24-7-1313. Have I changed your mind on Jacksonville? Do you think that maybe they deserve to be considered among potential AFC representatives in the Super Bowl? 719-24-7-1313. Denver Nuggets basketball coming up in less than 7 minutes. First of a 4-game road trip in Indianapolis. Your thoughts in the meantime, 719-24-7. 1313. Tom texts in and says, I would keep the Nuggets the way they are, just gotta get healthy. This obviously pertaining to the rumors surrounding Giannis and us playing the game. Would you trade multiple Denver Nuggets players for Giannis? And I'm pleased that is the response, because I think it shows that we collectively, because I arrived at this conclusion as well, I think we know what is important. And I think maybe if you follow the Denver Nuggets, you know it better than other teams, because the Nuggets won a championship right at the nexus of these two CBAs. Right? And they were tried for the longest time to compete under the other CBA, old CBA rules with super teams and all this kind of stuff. And they were able to build it up and win. And then immediately when that happened and they had a chance to sustain it, here comes the new CBA, and Bruce Brown leaves. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope has to go. And they've finally gotten to the point where they've got a team built for this new CBA. And I kind of hate the fact that we have to talk about a team that is built for the collective bargaining agreement. But that's where we're at because of how punitive it is and how different it is than the previous iteration of the agreement. But the Nuggets have a team that's truly built for this CBA. And then they're going to give it up to get a player as brilliant as Giannis is? I don't think it makes a lot of sense, and you don't either. But if you're a Nuggets fan, definitely be rooting for Giannis to end up in New York. Because if he doesn't end up in New York, he might wind up on one of the teams directly competing with the Denver Nuggets. But at the same time, can't the argument, be made of, and I certainly make this with the Rockets. Like, if you're Houston, I think you got to think long and hard about the idea of giving up Amen Thompson. And, right? You have built this young core that was second in the Western Conference last year. And then you were able to add Kevin Durant, and you still have this young core of Jabari Smith and Alperen Sengun and Amen Thompson. And you're going to give up some part of that or a significant chunk of that for Giannis? It makes a little bit more sense for Houston than it does for Denver, but not a lot. Not a lot. The team that I look at and I say has the assets to trade for Giannis, and also it would make sense without giving up, fundamentally altering their team, is San Antonio. Because they have a surplus. If Milwaukee is willing to take on Dylan Harper, and then you throw in Devin Vassell and I think it was Kelly Olynyk's expiring deal, you would still have De'Aaron Fox, Steph Castle, Wemby, and Giannis. So if I'm thinking through logically, who would be the best fits for Giannis, not who can pull off a deal, best two fits, San Antonio in the West, New York in the East. That's why I would be surprised if Giannis is not either on the Knicks or the Spurs. Because if I'm Houston, I'm a little bit hesitant because I like what I have. And I think Amen Thompson can grow. And it's more not, are you trading? Because the old adage, if Amen Thompson, his ceiling is Giannis, you could get Giannis. I understand that. But it's not just trading one for another. This isn't free agency we're talking about here. Do you have to give up Jabari Smith and Thompson to make it work? Do you have to give up Şengün? If you don't, then by all means, go after Giannis. But I think if I'm Houston, I pause for a moment. I do. Want to leave you with a thought. Guys, when something just feels off, right? You're tired, your motivation's gone, you're not performing like you used to, whether it be at work, at home, or in the gym. It may not just be aging, it could be low testosterone. That's where Synergenics and Low T Center come in. Their testosterone replacement therapy has helped thousands of men feel like themselves again. I've heard guys say it changed their life, saved their marriage, even saved their life. And here's the best part. You could start with a free testosterone test, no cost, no pressure, just answers. Don't let this be another thing you keep putting off. The best version of you is out there, full of energy, confidence, and drive, but you've got to take the first step. Go to trtmvp.com and book your free test today. The best you is waiting. Enjoy Nuggets and Pacers. We'll talk tomorrow.